Should I just send?
Yes.
No, sharp. Good morning and welcome to our special broadcast from the State Capture Commission. My name is Mahlasi. Any minute now, we're expecting former president, the man of the hour, or should we say the man of the week, supposedly. We are hoping that he will be arriving here, and this is the day that has been scheduled for him to face the DCJ Judge Zondo. Of course, we know that former President Jacob Zuma is a reluctant witness coming to the State Capture Commission. His lawyers have put forward many conditions on how he should actually not come. They've suggested that the former president must in fact be given questions ahead of the time. The commission has actually refused. At the moment, it is not quite clear whether the president himself will finally take the stand. But of course, we are all here waiting to see President Jacob Zuma's next move, and basically also to just go back on all of the events that have led us here. And to talk us through this, I'm joined by EWN senior reporters Teto Matlakwane and of course Clement Manyatela. Good morning and thank you for joining us. Clement, let me start with you. Outside, we were expecting, people had estimated thousands and thousands of supporters. No show.
That's the question, and let's put the number to that: 2,000 to 5,000 supporters. That's what supporters of former President Jacob Zuma were expected outside. They're not there. I haven't seen a single person waving a placard that says "Hands off Zuma." If anything, we're seeing a big banner just as you enter the building here at the State Capture Commission, which says "Hands off the Zondo Commission." So in fact, it's people that are pro this commission that are already stationed outside, and we're still waiting for the former president supporters to be outside to show that support.
Teto, of course, the two people that have made a grand entrance, so to speak, is Carl Niehaus, the current spokesperson of MKMVA, and of course somebody we associate with Weekend Special, the former Finance Minister Des van Rooyen, who have come here very clear that they're here to support the former president.
Absolutely. They have also stated, of course, the very obvious case that has been made by the former president himself in the past, saying that they want the scope of this particular commission to be expanded. They do not, of course, specify up to which period, but they do want this commission to also look into what they say are apartheid crimes or apartheid corruption on the state. That's an old argument. We wonder if it will resurface if Zuma should come before this commission, and whether it's within the parameters of even the terms of reference that he'll be testifying under to bring up such an argument. But of course, Carl Niehaus is very adamant that these supporters that Clement has not seen, nor have I, nor have you, will be on the way, that they are coming as far as KwaZulu-Natal, saying that they're mostly out of the province and from far-flung out areas, and that is explaining why they are showing up so late, but still very adamant that there will be thousands of supporters outside by the time the former president takes to the stand, or if he does take to the stand.
And of course, Des van Rooyen is quite a key factor at this commission. We haven't seen him saying that he will be coming, but of course we know that he is the minister that replaced Nhlanhla Nene when he was axed in that 0909 was it 2016 decision by Jacob Zuma to fire Nhlanhla Nene.
Yeah, the Nene Gate and that fallout, I mean, that sent the markets into a tailspin. The irony of him coming here supporting the former president, yet he has also been mentioned at the State Capture Commission, and he needs to come and answer, because there have been allegations that when he came to Treasury, he came with his own people, and he didn't even know those people.
The advisors from the Guptas.
From the Guptas. So he didn't even know that who the certain advisors are going to be, because they were coming and they were recommended by the Gupta family. And we have heard evidence here of how even those advisors were running the shots at Treasury on the first day, and they were somehow sidelining the people that were in communications. They were sidelining the Director General at the time, Dondo Mokhajani, as well, and they wanted to take over National Treasury. And don't forget that email that was also sent out and said something along the lines of "the time is now," from the advisors saying now is the time, we've entered Treasury. So it's that irony, but Des van Rooyen has been very consistent. I've been to KwaZulu-Natal to cover the corruption case around former President Jacob Zuma. He's been there consistently, He's made it very clear that the former president is being targeted for pushing for radical economic transformation, and I suspect this is the kind of rhetoric we'll be hearing outside if those supporters arrive here.
Of course, it's quite telling. I mean, we know that the ANC has previously said that those who come to support the former president come in their own names and not necessarily in the name of the party. But the fact that we're just seeing a Des van Rooyen and a Carl Niehaus coming, and none of the big names, senior influential people inside the ANC NEC, is quite telling of Zuma's support at this stage.
Of course, I mean, the scenes that Clement just described of past appearances, whether it be court or wherever else, we've seen former ministers like Faith Mutambi, for example, who have showed up, and you wonder if these individuals have read the environment or the political space currently to suggest that maybe we should step back a little bit in order to garner favor with the current leadership inside the ANC. But there's also the fact that, Mahlatsi, there's going to be a lot of people who are vindicated by just the mere appearance of Jacob Zuma at this commission. There's, of course, the former Deputy Finance Minister, Cebisi Jonas, who blew the whistle, when everybody was just talking around rumors and talking about that which we suspect, and said that this thing is actually an actual thing that exists. State capture Israel, and there are these families that are trying to influence the direction of the state. Now, there's also the people like Themba Maseko, the former GCI SDG, who will come, of course, in and feel vindicated at the fact that he did receive that phone call from former President Jacob Zuma suggesting that he should be lenient in his dealings with the Gupta family and, approve those deals with them. So there's also that layer to it, as opposed to just only those who may particularly support him at this stage.
Of course, Teto, they're detailing some of the instances that the former president has been implicated under oath here at the commission. And quite importantly, the fact that you had Themba Maseko basically saying, the president called me and said, help the Guptas. And we understand that to be help them get access to that 600 million budget of GCIS so that they and N7 and in the new age can actually survive. We've had, disputed but fakey mentor also saying that Jacob Zuma was in the room next door when the Guptas were offering him that position. What else are we expecting the president to answer to?
So there's already been the former editor of ANN7 who's spoken extensively about the role that the former president played in the formation of the channel. We heard that he even suggested the name ANN7. We heard about the kind of editorial decisions that he was also part of. So that's number one. Nhlanhla, the former finance minister, has spoken about how he got a lot of pressure from from then President Jacob Zuma and even the then Minister of Energy, Tina Joemat-Pettersson, to sign off on that R1 trillion nuclear deal project. And he said, I refused because we didn't have the money for it, but he received that pressure. Barbara Hogan was here, the former Public Enterprises Minister, and she said Zuma called her and said, I want Siyabonga Gama as CEO of Transnet. And she said to the former president, well, he's facing disciplinary processes. I cannot make him CEO. And the president said, listen, I'm not caring about those things. I want him as CEO. So those are some of the things that the former president would have to respond to, if he will respond at all, around the kind of allegations that have been made here at the commission.
Of course, Teto, the president, all of these people have implicated Jacob Zuma in one form or the other. But we know that the former president has never formally responded to any of the allegations, except perhaps in the safety net of parliament, where what you say can't necessarily be used against you outside of those walls. We know that it's usually when he speaks outside the courts, when he addresses his supporters, that he's actually referred to his relationship with the Guptas. Can we actually expect him to finally sit, take oath, and then answer to all of these these allegations?
Mahlatsi, given the amount of time that has passed and also the amount of effort that he's put in basically making sure that he does not appear at this commission, I doubt that he'll be very forthcoming as to his implicity or even complicity in some of these acts that he's alleged to have committed. Now, he will, of course, put up many legal arguments, and I think it's exactly that legal parameter that will be very interesting to watch, because I doubt that he will want to give testimony today or throughout the week, I project that there will be attempts to derail this particular commission or him giving testimony at this commission for as long as possible. Of course, pushing this commission onto uncharted terrain to such a degree that we may have a situation where the only way we will hear any substantive, testimony coming out of Jacob Zuma's mouth will be if he's subpoenaed to do so by this commission.
Because we have understood from those that are close to his legal team that the plan here is to argue still the stuff that they have argued in their presentations to the State Commission around the procedure followed to force Zuma to come here, around whether he should be sent questions. And some have even suggested that if Moses Sikhakhane is the one standing there, we might be schooled in law, which is what you recently witnessed when you were in Durban for his corruption trial.
You're taking me back to the Durban, the Pietermaritzburg High Court when Moses Sikhakhane took the stand, and the theatrics that came with him taking up there. But it will be interesting to see. I've heard that Daniel Mancha may be the one taking the stand, but if it's Moses Sikhakhane, it's going to be very interesting. And remember at the Pietermaritzburg High Court, he even asked the judges if he can speak in his home language, and give his opening statement. And they said no. If he's the one, is he going to ask that from this commission? We'll find out. But Daniel Mancha has been very clear and consistent that this commission is politicized. It wants to humiliate and ambush the president. They've asked for the questions in advance, and the commission said no. The commission asked for a statement by the 12th of June or June. It still hasn't come forth, that affidavit by the president on what exactly he'll be saying at the commission and responding to some of the allegations. So I think, Mahlatsi, before we even start, Daniel Mancha or Moses Sikhakhane are going to take about 30 minutes or so to slam the commission, to repeat all of the things they've said about the commission and how biased it is and how political it is and how it just wants to humiliate the former president, really.
And of course, it's going to be a test for the commission because they are yet to meet such a witness. Many of the people that have come here voluntarily. There are people who have said, I believe this, I have something to contribute, this is what happened to me, and this is how I was forced in a corner to either sign off on a deal or money that was deposited into my account, etc., etc. So this is going to be a real test for Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice.
It is going to be a real test for the Justice and also just for the entire commission, for the evidence leaders even, because the argument that is going to be made is going to be based on substantial issues. And we may even find a situation, Mahlatsi, where he turns the issues around on those who have accused them.
I don't know if they can see, but of course we are seeing cars coming in, and that definitely looks like it is the former president Jacob Zuma, 15 minutes before he's scheduled to actually appear before the commission. So I'm going to be letting the two of you go, as you have to go inside and actually get to sit and listen so that we can update our listeners and our viewers about what is happening inside the State Capture Commission. For now, let's look at this insert that takes us back to the long and difficult journey that has led us to this point.
Mina lo ngishilo nje anginalo icala angaze ngone nangelilodwa ilanga ngisho kwi-commission bayangifuna abangitholi ngoba ngaze ngone lutho.
In 2018, then-President Jacob Zuma announced that a commission of inquiry into allegations of state capture would be established.
I decided to appoint a commission of inquiry.
Since its inception, a number of people have testified, some implicating the former president.
His words were, we'll tell the president what to do and how to sort these things out, because it was getting a bit much.
Chair, I was extremely shocked. The president would not hear of any candidate except Siyabonga Gama.
The president proceeded to say the following in isiZulu. Mfoka baba, kunala madoda kwaGupta, ngifuna ukuthi uhlale nabo futhi ubancede.
President Zuma was very much involved in the running of the station, in the sense that there were regular review meetings where a status update was given to him.
Zuma's lawyer, Dan Mancha, has criticized the Commission of Inquiry into state capture, with Zuma even saying that state capture does not exist.
this thing called state capture. State capture. My view, and I'm not disagreeing with anyone, these are political decorated expressions. Absolutely. There's no state that is captured.
Fast forward to 20 June 2019, the commission announced that Zuma had agreed to attend the state capture inquiry. The commission said in a statement that they'd been in correspondence with Zuma's attorneys since April 2019, asking that the former president furnish it with a written undertaking that he would appear before the commission. According to the commission, Zuma had insisted that he be furnished with the questions he would be asked in advance before he agreed to appear. The commission, however, maintained that Zuma was not entitled to make such a request. Zuma is due to appear from 15 to 19 July 2019.
Wow, that insert there just showing us the long and difficult road that has gotten us here, and of course how the former president Jacob Zuma has resisted having this commission over and over again. But we know that he has now finally arrived, and we're expecting proceedings to get underway at 10 a.m. and we will be crossing live inside the State Capture Commission. Now I'm joined by EWN reporter Bonga Dlulane. Thank you for joining us, Bonga. The former president actually arrived.
D-Day for the former president Jacob Zuma. We've just seen his large motorcade coming into the venue where he's expected to take the stand barely 15 minutes before he gets that. We don't know if he'll say anything, but we've seen that as expected, there's not much of the supporters where people wanted them. There's more journalists and more security other than that than the former president supporters. There was talk that maybe 20,000 people might come. We're still not sure if they'll show up, but we'll keep an eye out. But for now, it's rather disappointing for some that they thought they'd be here showing support for the president.
Look, we know that his support has been dwindling if we look at the numbers when he appears in the Pietermaritzburg High Court. But this time around, he has appeared to no crowd. There was absolutely no song in support of Jacob Zuma. There were just no supporters, despite the likes of Carl Niehaus telling us there will be people outside to show support for the former president.
Yet another thing it seems that the Niehaus is wrong about, because he's also inside all in his suit. He's not in his traditional or a trademark MK veterans attire, where he's always outside singing, organizing the crowd. We've also seen Dance Fire and come in with also a suit, so you're expecting a more formal approach from them trying to support the president. But what's interesting also is that the president seems to be getting support from people who are outside of the ANC, who've been also very critical of it. But since he was disposed by President Ramaphosa, he has now gained the support of the BLF, which you just seen arrive, interestingly, him here to support him.
But Andy Lemqitama, the leader of Black First Land First, is here, but he doesn't seem to have a crowd supporting him either.
Another one who seems his party is against him too, because a few weeks ago they were saying that he's not a member of the party. There was a bit of situation with his membership, but he's here in all his rhetoric in very militant way of saying that this is a campaign by the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, who stole NASREC conference.
Is that the words he used?
Those are the words used, inverted commas. Basically, he's quoting that he stole the NASREC conference. He was scared that the president, former president Jacob Zuma, wanted to pursue the radical economic transformation, and he wants him to, because it was a threat to him and his white friends. And again, that's what his words, he says that's when Cyril Ramaphosa decided to act against Zuma. So they're saying that they're here to support. He's only here by himself. Also, interestingly, the crowd of his party that we know of. So that should all tell you something about Zuma's support and his support when it comes to this.
Of course, they are usually loud and present and very hard to miss. But instead, all we're seeing is the heavy security presence here because of those crowds that were anticipated. Just paint paint the picture for our viewers.
A heavy security, President Matlasi, too, is also that even for us media too outside, when you come in, there's like two processes you have to register in so that you can show your accreditation, also make sure that you show your media card. For the public also, they need their ID. They also need to prove when they come in, say that the members of the public. So you can see security is tight. There's only 200 limited seats inside, which is at the first come first serve basis. The large screens that are said to be provided for the commission for people outside are no longer in play because the commission says there's no unforeseen circumstances. Basically, they're saying using those words. But we'll keep a watch to see if any more people come in. But for now, it's just a large media contingent as expected. All the media houses, local and international, here. Security police are here also to make sure that the president who's here will be safe and the commission, nothing goes wrong. And also those, private security for the president who are guarding President Jacob Zuma. Their large motorcade just came in a few minutes ago. So it's quite heavy security. If they do come, the people will not be allowed anywhere close to the venue. They have been provided space just outside a street away from this venue of the State Zonal Commission. So it'll be interesting to see what will happen.
We are basically fenced off from what I could see outside. But also interestingly, or quite disappointingly, the commission has said that this is a public hearing. People can actually come in. They've allocated 200 seats. They've said those that want to come just have to bring in their positive identification. But instead, we are not seeing even that interest from the public that just wants to see and hear the former president have his day here at the commission.
There's more interest on social media than there is on the ground, really, Matlati. You said we don't know whether people are really not for Zuma anymore or they just don't put any emphasis in him anymore. As you said earlier on, his support might be dwindling. This might be a sign of it, that we're not interested anymore. We'll just watch at home. We don't know if he'll say anything, and whatever he has to say, maybe we'll catch it through the TV and also through the website. So it's interesting to see as that no many people as expected have come, as people had thought. 20,000 people were saying that they're expecting that people burst in from KwaZulu-Natal, where there's a huge support base, but that seems not to be the case. But it's still early, people like African time. Who knows? Maybe
yes, actually, when we were speaking earlier to Teto Matlakwana, she was saying that in her quick interview with Carl Niehaus, he was basically saying that they have actually dispatched buses. They are coming from as far as KwaZulu-Natal. They are a little bit delayed, but they will be coming through. So we will see, we'll wait and see. Obviously, this is a commission that has been scheduled, or the sitting has been scheduled for the whole week, where we're expecting the former president to actually be taking the stand. But as we've been telling you, it is quite unclear whether he will actually speak. What we know so far is that his legal team, when it is being introduced, they are likely to actually put forward the legal arguments that they have put in writing so far to the commission. They have told the commission so far that they wanted questions to be sent to the former president before he can actually answer. We know that they have said that they feel that the commission is biased against the former president, and the former president himself has said that it is political, it is against him. He actually doesn't recognize him. In fact, Bonga, we know in previous occasions the president has actually asked the question, for any country, for the state to be captured, it must be the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. And he's been asking the question, where is the state capture that everybody's talking about?
I think the president also seems to forget that sometimes perception of what things are is what reality is, because he has been close so well with these individuals that are accused here, mainly the Gupta permanent family. We've known now it has expanded to more people basically saying that what has happened is also state-owned enterprises. So Mr. Zuma does have a case to answer as to these people who felt so close to him that they thought that they could offer ministers, they could offer positions of CEOs to people in SOE. So he has also a responsibility on that. I think he needs to take cognizance of that. And I think Judge Zondo wants his side of the story, because over 5-7 people have said that the president was there, or it was created the impression that Zuma was behind this, the Gupta saying, you must do this. So I think the president there also seems to miss a point, that even though he might not have given direct instructions to Bruce Kolwane, but there was that laid-back, created impression that he was signing off, so he has to give his side of the story, no matter if he thinks there's no hard evidence against him, but he has been implicated.
The one thing we've been spoken about, Bonga, now is that video that the president dropped yesterday on social media. We know he's now an avid user of Twitter, and
drop, the first thing I did was laugh, and I was like, how can in a serious situation like this you be behaving like this? But also that should give you maybe a preview of how he views this whole thing as maybe not so very serious, as a man who's like, I have nothing to worry about, all I can do is dance and mark those people who are saying Zuma must fall. So now he's also taking a swipe at basically the commission as South Africans, even though the video has gotten a lot of attraction on Twitter. It's been trending because it's the first time he's basically said anything about the commission on record, where he was like, I have nothing to worry about, I'm coming, I'm going to come there. But it's such a way of looking at it, the way he seems to be jovial, enjoying himself. He doesn't seem like a man who's worried. So that should give you an insight into him. Maybe that's what he says, I have nothing to worry about, so why should I be worried?
As somebody was reminding me earlier, that we shouldn't have been surprised, because this is the president who has giggled in Parliament when he was asked the difficult questions around his relationship with the Guptas, or whether it was around the money that was spent on his homestead of Nkandla. He has giggled his way through. He's the man that has given us the term Tiklo Wase George Koch, also making fun of it. He was also the man who made fun of Nkandla. So this is perhaps the continuation of the president, or former president, Jacob Zuma. We know, as we said to you, we are live from the State Capture Commission. We will be going inside the commission, where we are expecting President Jacob Zuma and his legal team to start with the proceedings today. The big question still remains whether he will actually answer any questions. Most people are expecting that his legal team will put forward a legal argument, and it will be up to how the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo reacts to that legal argument. We know that they do have an option of a subpoena. So far, this is per invitation. He has accepted that invitation, but the legal team was cryptic, saying that he will appear, but would not say if actually he will answer any of the questions. We know that the commission has set aside the whole week for former President Jacob Zuma to be able to answer to some of the allegations against him, very serious ones, made by various people who held senior positions in his cabinet, or senior positions within cabinet. And also some have spoken, as Bonga was telling us, around the influence on who should become chairpersons of boards in state-owned entities, who should actually be there controlling issues. But of course, we know that the former president has also consistently said that he does not recognize this commission. In paper, it is a commission that he himself has actually set up, Bonga. It is a commission that he has set up, but it was one that he set up under duress.
And also brings him to a bit of a rock and a hard place, because if he didn't believe in this commission, why sign off in the first place? But I think he does have some sort of respect for Judge Zondo, and I expect the president might, at some point, he can't use his lawyers all the time, so he has to, at the same point, actually do say something. What interesting, Mashlat, is also, you said they used the word invitation, inviting him. I think it's a precedent that 5 days has been set down for one witness, and one wonders, is that because it's President Jacob Zuma, or is it because of the people who have implicated him? But for now, we will have to see just how he interacts with Judge Zondo, because Judge Zondo is also very respectful, very cordial when we come witnesses here. He always say he wants this to be a safe space, but his lawyers might have a different view about that. But we have to see how the president views this commission. Does he want to speak? Will he speak? What will he say? But I don't think we'll go as far as disrespecting the man he set up, and to make sure that he leads this commission to find out exactly if and what state capture is under his reign as president.
Of course, this is President Jacob Zuma having to defend what some have called the lost 10 years, or the corruption-ridden 10 years under his rule. This is the first time that he gets to appear before the Zondo Commission. Also quite a unique in this is the first witness who has come here reluctantly. Many of those that have come here have come to tell of their pain, their difficulty in trying, in surviving those years when there was so much pressure on them to actually execute some of the decisions that were illegal. Some of them have spoken about losing their jobs because there were those who wanted some of the deals to go through, even though they were illegal. They were suspended with pay, and some of them not coming forward. But of course, things appear to be starting inside the commission.
The judge is ready to get in. Thank you. Can you get into order? Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Zuma. Morning, Chair. Thank you. Before we start, I have a few remarks to make. Today, the former President of the Republic, Mr. Jacob Zuma, appears before this commission without having been compelled to do so, and in response to a request from the commission to give an undertaking that he would appear before it this week, which he gave. The commission appreciates that he is here. I accept that through his lawyers, he has indicated that he has certain reservations about the commission and that he reserves his rights in appearing before the Commission. The Commission has no difficulty with this and accepts that everyone is entitled to have an opinion about the Commission. I just want to make it clear that the former president is not the only leader in this country who is going to be appearing before the Commission. There are others who will be appearing before the Commission. And I also wish to point out that the Commission is not mandated to prove any case against anybody, but it is mandated to investigate and inquire into certain allegations. And as I've indicated, over a long period, it invites everyone who has information or knowledge of matters that fall under its terms of reference to make that information available to it so that it can investigate those matters. In doing its work, this commission will seek to hear from as many people as possible within the time and financial constraints that it has. It will seek to have the benefit of different perspectives from different people in our country in regard to yes. So that possible, at the end of its work, it will be able to make findings based on as full evidence as possible and based on having had as different perspectives from different people about the matters that it is investigating. It is important to emphasize that the evidence leaders are mandated to seek to establish what the facts are through questions that they ask, and not to prove any particular allegation against anybody. But they are required to assist me as the chairperson of the commission by asking questions, including those that will seek to establish what the truth is. This commission attempts at all times to treat all those who appear before it with respect and courtesy, without compromising its mandate, but will be firm where firmness is required. The former president, in appearing before the commission this week, is expected to deal with various matters in respect of which certain witnesses who have been identified have submitted statements before the commission and given evidence. It is anticipated that this will not be the last appearance of the former presidents before the commission, but that it may be necessary at a later stage to ask him again to appear before it in order to deal with other issues. It is possible that although we have set aside 5 days this week for the evidence of the former president, it is possible that we might not use all the 5 days. I thank the former president for having given the undertaking to appear before the commission and having actually appeared as it does this morning. Those are the remarks I wanted just to make before we can start. Mr. Pretorius.
The former president is represented by a legal team. May his counsel place himself on record, and I understand that he wishes to address you on certain matters.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I make this address because I think there's been a lot of exchange, correspondence exchange, and the propaganda machine out there has been quite alive. And I thought it's important that we place certain things on record because I said this on the first day of this commission. And the letters demonstrate that people don't believe our undertaking. I said to the chairperson that the former president established this commission and is willing to cooperate. So all the speculation about
yes, you did.
Is untrue. Mr. Mancha did set out some of the problems that emerged here, the notices that we didn't receive. So I do not want to traverse that ground. The ground I want to traverse starts from the 30th of April, because the speculation and some of the misunderstandings emerge from the correspondence starting from that day from the Commission. And the most important paragraphs in that letter of the 30th of April this year is that it says in paragraph 1A and B, the former president is being invited here to put his side of the story, to state his side of the story. And the second one says that the commission wishes to ask him a couple of questions. And the second letter then from there, and I want to state this because there's been a misunderstanding about why his attorneys were inquiring. You will recall, Chairperson, that in terms of your rules, the rules of this commission, 3.3 in particular, one of the rights of the witnesses or implicated people is that they make an election when you tell them that you believe they're implicated. They make an election that I've listened to this, I have read the statements, I do not think I am implicated. And they do so at their peril, of course, because they must accept that you may make an inference. And the former president made that election in respect of all. And this was done in careful consideration of whether or not he had been implicated in the two crimes that this commission is about, fraud and corruption. We're not sure about the other one because its elements are not yet established, the one called state capture. So in the second letter, we request the questions. The chairperson will recall that in 3.10, it sets out a number of ways in which he could come here. And we asked for that specific, we made that request. We were not being facetious. It was a request because, as you will see today, I hand over Mr. Zuma to you, the former president, without knowing what he's going to say. None of us in this room know which names he's going to mention. And we were asking that question because an unfairness has happened in this commission, where people have been blurbing names of people, connecting their own dots about people. And those people have not been able to be noticed, to be given notice in time. And of course, there is some injustice that Mr. Zuma may do today. And that is why we were asking for specificities so that we could prepare him, we could advise him to go to certain people and not mention names of people without you as the commission giving them notice. That was not appreciated by Mr. Pedler or on your behalf, because there was a belief that we were doing a Stalingrad or a Zuma tactic, as it's called. You will see that the other letter, we have an exchange until the 24th of June. Chairperson, the letter that really, I think we must record it for your attention, although it's done on your behalf, but I'm certain that these particular words, because they were difficult for us. It's the letter of the 7th of June. We tell your Mr. Pedler, or the attorney tells him, please, in terms of which rule are we coming? And of course, because he has adopted, or there's a position that this is not genuine, he tells us, he says, this is done in terms of no rules. And that's one part that is missing out there, is that we are told by a creature of statute that they are calling a witness in terms of no rules. He says it's a courtesy. We write because we say, this is dangerous. We want to prepare him. Well, the next letter is the letter of the 12th. It explains exactly what I've said to the chairperson. On the 20th, there's another letter. Then on the 24th of June, chairperson, you will see the tone of Mr. Mancho's letter. He does give up because his client has given up. And he says, well, I'll bring him. Chairperson, I'm raising this. That was the last letter. I'm raising that because there's truly a particular, a disturbing attitude that one finds in the letters. And it's an attitude that one does not expect in a legal process like this, that is designed to treat each and every witness as a witness who must be put to rigor. And we believe that had we been given an opportunity to prepare Mr. Zuma, to advise him about people's names that he may mention, that he can't do so without those people being given notice, this process today would be much better. And so I'm going to hand him over to you, Chairperson. I'm making these things because he's not my guest today, he's yours. Is that I've brought him here to you with reservations about how he's been called, with reservation about the unfairness that may happen to people he may mention. He may mention you, he may mention Mr. Pretorius, he may mention all sorts of people we don't know. And what do we do about the unfairness of the process? Chairperson, those are the words, insofar as the acrimony about his stance about this commission, I think we all know that the question about bias is not whether it's actual bias, it's when there is conduct in the commission that makes the witness feel some reasonable apprehension that he is biased. So I'm going to hand him over to this commission because he is your guest, and hope that he will be protected from himself. And those that he is going to mention are going to be treated fairly because they don't know he's about to out them. Thank you, Chair.
Well, before you sit down, Mr. Skakane, as you say, the letters from the acting secretary of the commission were written on my behalf.
Yes, Chair.
Actually, I fully approved each one of them, and so I just want to make that clear that the words in the letters can be taken to be my words. But we accept that the former president and his legal team have a certain view of the letters which we have articulated. We remain committed to making sure that this process is as fair as possible.
Thank you, Chair. The last thing I want to say is that 1A of your first letter then is that because you asked him to come to do two things, is that he has asked me to allow him to do 1A of that request. which is to address you, to put his side of the story as he sees it, to connect his own dots. And that's what he's about to do.
No, that's fine. We asked him to come and give his side of the story, and he will be allowed to do that.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Pretorius?
Just very briefly, we haven't had notice of any substantive application, and I don't believe there is a substantive application before you, Chair. But just to clarify on a number of issues, the question of an election having been made, we will deal with in due course to the extent that it is necessary. The question of whether there should have been a rule invoked or whether it is simply an order for a witness to be invited to the Commission is a matter, if it has any substance or merit at all, will be addressed in due course. But our position is clear that there is an invitation. The invitation has been accepted. There can be no quarrel with that. It seems to us, however, Chair, that the nub of the complaint raised by Mr. Sikakane in his address to you, Chair, is that former President Zuma is going to, quote, unquote, out certain people. He hasn't had an opportunity to give notice to those people because of the procedures that have preceded the former president's hearing, and therefore unfairness may result. I'm not sure I understand the logic of that in any manner at all, Chair. If the former president's intention here today is to implicate certain parties under whatever clause of our terms of reference, then that is his prerogative. But to say it's unfair because he's been prevented from giving notice is simply illogical. We don't know as a legal team. The Secretariat doesn't know what he's going to say or who he's to implicate. How that problem could be solved simply by giving questions of matters that we do know to the former president escapes us, Chair. Quite simply, it's always been open if the former president and his legal team were concerned about this particular issue and fairness in relation to this particular issue, to have given such notice and to say we are going to implicate. To expect us somehow through questions of matters we have no knowledge of to foreshadow or foretell what is going to be said doesn't bear scrutiny, Chair. So that complaint cannot be accepted by us, certainly, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Mrs. Scott, do you want to respond? Okay. Let Mrs. Kakane respond to that before we proceed. Please switch on the mic.
Now that he has started on his condescension, let me deal with it. Now, first, I did not say Mr. Zuma wanted to give notice to anybody. I said an injustice can happen because we would have liked to prepare him, right? So everything he's saying, if we not run it fairly, all of us, we run the risk. I did not say he should have given people notice. The problem is this attitude exactly of this commission, is that people bring their views outside and treat certain witnesses as sweethearts and others as accused. I am saying it's important that everybody who comes here gets the same rigor and the same questioning. People must not bring their own ideas out there. And I think Mr. Pretorius is doing exactly that. I was articulating to you, Chairperson, the dangers that we saw, and that is why we kept asking. And I don't think I was inviting his condescension, because he didn't understand what I was saying. He truly did not. And this is the problem. We've been speaking past each other. And I'm raising this because he does not have to interpret what I'm saying. If he didn't understand me, he must say so. It's this attitude that I think is making your process.
Thank you, Mr. Skakane. May I request that there be no clapping of hands, please? Thank you, Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you, Chair. I won't respond. We'll try and maintain a collegiality and a dignity in these proceedings.
Yes. You are ready to start?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. Mr. Zuma, we will need to do an oath or affirmation. May I ask you to switch on your mic in front of you? Which one would you prefer, an oath or affirmation?
I don't know.
I think she must go and help you. She will go and help her. It is on. Oh, I'm told that mic is on.
Yeah, it's on now.
Oh, okay, all right. Which one will it be, oath or affirmation?
Oath.
Oath, thank you. Maybe if you could stand. Would you please state your full names for the record?
I'm Jacob Gedlehlekisa Zuma.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you swear that the evidence you are going to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Thank you.
I think, Mr. Pretorius, we will start with the part that Mr. Skakane indicated that Mr. Zuma would like to start with.
As you please, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Zuma, I understand from your counsel that before any questions can be put to you, you would like to state you'd like to state your side of the story or to address me on certain aspects or to indicate what you would like to say on various issues. This is the opportunity that I am giving you to do so before any questions can be put to you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Zuma, you may use the microphone with the red light.
I'll use the red one, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and of course the entire Commission. Firstly, Chair, I've got some flu, so my voice is up and down.
Well, I had flu from Thursday, but I think I'm fine now.
Yes. Chair, you will realize that me as an individual, I've been a subject in this country for more than a decade. I've been vilified, alleged to be the king of corrupt people. I'm the most corrupt. I've been given every other name, and I'd never responded to those issues. Firstly, because I believe it is important that we all respect one another, that we must say things we know about other people, not just tell things that we cannot prove. This has been my nature as I grew up, and I joined the ANC in my early age. In addition to the teachings from my own homestead and my parents, I also got taught in the ANC to behave in a particular way. And I have paid for my activities in the ANC, including going to prison, serving a term of 10 years. At some point, I had to leave my country to go out. And in the process, the ANC gave me different responsibilities at all material times that I've been active and participating, then finding myself finally in the leadership of the ANC. The reason why I'm starting here, Chair, is because when this commission was proposed or a recommendation was made that I should establish a commission by the public protector, the previous one, there were certain issues that I was not happy the manner in which they were handled. And of course, the commission was to deal with an important point. But as I will indicate, part of the reason why I'm here, that's the background I'm going to deal with, why I find myself sitting here today, and where it comes from. Particularly because this commission, from my understanding, was really created to have me coming here. And perhaps to find things on me. I will deal with how it was conceived and therefore made the commission as to what it is. Because the ANC gave me tasks, perhaps I had to know things that other people might not have known. And the question is, how would I handle those? And I was taught how to handle them. That is why, in the background that I'm going to give, I will strengthen this point I'm making. Sorry.
That was Zulu for saying the flu is preventing from speaking.
There has been a drive to remove me from the scene. A wish that I should disappear. And I will explain where it comes from and why perhaps it is important that I deal with in this commission. And it arises out of perhaps my work in the ANC, and also because of who I am. This conspiracy against me has been stretched at all material times when there are things to be done or said. It has come in different forms, and that's why there are even people who say I've got a way of trying to dodge things in one form or the other. And I'm going to connect the dots over a decade that talk to this point and talk to why I'm here. As you know, in 1990, the ANC was unbanned. And I was one of those who was sent ahead of everyone to make contact with the then government to study the process of finding a solution in this country. People referred to it as talks about talks. I then became part of the negotiating team, and we finally reached a point where those who were in prison were out, those who were in exile came back. At that time, my specific task, among many, was to be the chief of intelligence of the African National Congress. In other words, I was part of the leadership at that very sensitive area with my late comrade, John Hlanhla. Leaving many things, just to go to the point straight. In 1990, when we were already inside the country, I received a report, an intelligence report, which was saying there were 3 intelligence organizations that met, had a meeting to discuss me. and had a plan to begin in 1990 a process of character assassination of this organization, one of the apartheid, which was part of this conspiracy. When I received this report, had a discussion with my colleague Glandler, we did not know what is the reason. We're very keen to hear why must Zuma's character be assassinated. I then used the to ask those who would be receiving the question and giving an answer. They should not know that this question comes from me, because we had people in the intelligence, had a lot of networkings and networks, as well as people dealing with different things. So we sent the question. After a brief period, the answer came back. Was the reason we wanted to character assassinate the Zuma's character was because he has a lot of information that he holds. Among that type of information, as a chief of intelligence, there are spies that are infiltrated by us in his organization. Whom we want to nurture, that they grow within the structures of the ANC to a point that it have to lead the ANC. Now, Zuma has information about these. We don't know when will he use his information to stop that process, that plan of theirs. And therefore, they took a decision that Zuma must be removed from decision-making structures of the ANC. And that's why the character assassination began. That's the beginning of the process that has put me where I am today. And I thought it is important to go through this. Whatever else will be the end of your process, but at least some truth should be known. We handled this at a very, very delicate intelligence. When I was going to be a 1990 of the ANC, it was a consultative conference, not elective conference. But these three organizations thought that it was an elective conference. That's why they were engaging in this plan and this conspiracy. Then the ANC, in the course of the period, was explaining that this was a consultative. So they realized they made a mistake by thinking it was elective. So in the course of the same year, I received another report which said that they have postponed this campaign because they realized this was not an elective conference. So kept quiet. But the ANC, of course, held that conference. In one of the resolutions of the ANC was that during 1991, it will have its first elective conference in December 1991. And therefore, that was information out there. In 1991, another intelligence information came that said that these three organizations have decided to change their plan slightly, because having investigated further in the ANC, they discovered that this Zuma had a very large support in the ANC and 100% support in the province of Natal. It would not therefore be easy to remove Zuma in the conference that is coming. The time is too short to character assassinate him to a point that you could remove him. What therefore they thought was important for them was to, because they said, you cannot remove him from the National Executive Committee, for an example. It's a decision-making structure. What, therefore, we should do, which was a fallback plan, that after the elective conference of 1991, Zuma must be removed from the position of Chief of Intelligence. And again, we looked at this and said, They were worrying things. For an example, the issue of the people we're about to negotiate with. What are they thinking that they may not know our own thinking, and we might not know also their own thinking. But what does this mean? So as we were preparing for the conference, it was clear that this first conference was of great interest, not only to South Africa, even for other countries out there. But this information was worrying. In fact, I think there was one article which was as a result of that, but it ended because they realized there were no further things they could do. I'm saying this because there has been a process, and particularly against Jacob Zuma, a conspiracy. I'm sitting there, and I'm told by other organizations that in my organization, as well as in the NEC, there are people who are working for them, whom they want to be in control of this country. It was a worrying point. Leaving aside the information I had, there would have been information I did not have, and perhaps important to try to follow this very closely. Of course, the conference came. In that conference, I was elected Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. And of course, Tambo moved out, and Tata Madiba came in as a president. there were two decisions taken by the organization that President Mandela and Thomas Nkobi, who was the Treasurer General, after the conference, they will go to the United States to raise funds. Another decision that Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma, shortly after conference, they will go to attend a conference in UK, which was discussing constitutional matters. And indeed, after all of that, when the NEC has been elected by conference, then the NEC elects the working committee, which runs the matters in between NEC meetings. So we left to our tasks. One day, as we finished the conference and going for supper, I rushed to my room to listen to the BBC Focus on Africa. We're a little bit addicted to it because out there we didn't listen to all the medias from home. Among the reports that were given by the BBC was the report of the meeting of the Working Committee of the ANC, which had met for the first time. And there were two decisions among many that were taken. One was that Thabo Mbeki was removed as the chief negotiator of the ANC, and Jacob Zuma has been removed as the chief of intelligence. When I was going down, I met Comrade Thabo. I said, man, there are decisions that have taken. We are no longer leading us on the negotiations. Not the only one. How the ANC, when the president of the organization is not there. Why? But to me, and I said to him, you did not know me, I knew that I was going to be removed, but I did not know how. The question that I was asking myself, I received information from intelligence sources that after the conference, I would be not the chief of intelligence. This is supposed to have been planned by these three organizations. What does this mean? It therefore was confirming that there may be spies here. Because it means there were people, when these intelligence organizations took the decision, that they directed that they must make this to happen. Of course, thereafter, we worked, and we did not even at that time take this matter as a general report in the ANC. We kept it as an intelligence issue. But it's important to say this because the character assassination that I have faced over the years, more than 20 years, this is one of the clear sources that I know. There was a plan to deal with Zuma, and Zuma has been dealt with all the time. In other words, foreign intelligence organizations, local one, of course under apartheid, for a variety of reasons, thought it was important to deal with this man. Now, it is important for me to state that anything that happened since that time, I've been linking the dots all the time. And I thought it is important to this commission, part of the reason as I would come to, that the matter of this commission is not different from, or the plan, not the commissioners here, those who initiated that there must be a commission. You recall that when I was not at the national level, I was in the province, suddenly I had to be charged. Before being charged, I was removed as a deputy president of the country, 2005, because I was implicated in the arms deal. Bear in mind that I was not in the national, I was not part of the processes, I was in the province. And it did not make sense to me. Of all the people who dealt with the arms deal, not a single one was ever, or there were ever allegations against. But there were allegations against me. I had to be investigated in a very strange way, even that investigation. I heard them being investigated by the Scorpions. At a given time, the head of NPA and the minister had a press conference wherein it was announced, yes, there is in our investigation, there is a prima facie case against Zuma, but it's unwinnable in court. So that's why we're not charging him. Now, there are investigations and investigations. I've never had that kind of level of investigation being reported in the media. Why it was reported in the media for me? There are so many cases. Clearly, that indicated the beginning of the implementation of this particular plan and the conspiracy. At some point, that's when by the ministers. Fine, I think that was a fair point. But he says there's no case against you. There's just few letters written by Shabir where he mentions your name, as people always drop names. But a week thereafter, I was called by two leading people in government and in the ANC who said, man, there's been an investigation against you, and it has come to a point where we must take a decision whether to continue investigating you or not, but this matter needs to be discussed to find a solution. And I said, what solution? At the end, I said, after whatever they said, I don't understand, because the man who's investigating just a week ago told me I've got no case. You are telling me here that you have a case. I don't understand. I think that destabilized that meeting. But of course, around the same time, there was information that I'm going to be talked to so that I resign from the leadership and go to Nkandla, and I will be looked after. That's that I would be. If I resign, we then have a way to solve this case. And I was saying to myself, that plan is now being implemented. These people don't know that I know something about the plan, because myself and John Nhlanhla, we did not report it to the entire leadership. It remained in the corridors of intelligence. So the issue of Zuma must resign, Zuma must leave the leadership, started way back as part of this plan. Of course, I did not resign because nobody at that point said it out and out. But there was in the corridors. That was followed by then the decision to remove me as a deputy president by the president of the country. And of course I did move away. I made it very clear that as a cadre of the ANC, I'm not going to argue, I'm not going to be, president has a right to take, etc. So I got out. I was also, but shortly thereafter, in terms of the ANC activities, I was brought back by the membership of the ANC in an NGC that was in Pretoria. So we continued. Then we were also approaching another conference, which was in Polokwane, where there was, as usual, as normal, contestations, people having different preferences, etc. And I'm sure it's a conference that is known by many people. That's where I became the president. But there were a lot of activities going on at the time and discussions about me in particular. Later on, I got to know that in fact there was a determination to arrest me before the conference in order to avoid me being part of that conference. I think such facts have come to light, particularly on the case of the police, politicians, leaders of the country were talking about me, that I must be arrested. That information was feeding into this fundamental intelligence organization's plan to deal with Zuma. Of course, perhaps it's a long story to say what are the issues, why Zuma must be dealt with in this fashion. I'm sure it's obvious. We proceeded in our life and working in government and in organization when I was being dismissed, in a statement in Parliament, the President says Zuma must have his day in court. And I hadn't been charged by then. First time I hear, I must have my day in court. But you will also remember this. I was investigated, there was a lot of halabaloo. Those who were investigating finally felt they've reached a stage to charge. They decided not to charge me, but charge Shabir Sheikh. But the accusation was that we committed crime with him. But not charged together, charge Shabir. As I got to know later, because they wanted Shabir to be convicted in order to charge me. And that's what happened. So in a sense, prolonging the narrative about Zuma is corrupt. You will also recall that when Judge Squires convicted Shabir, thereafter there was a lot of talk about that, people saying the judge said between Shabir and Zuma there has been a generally corrupt relationship. That relationship was a corrupt relationship. The media, politicians, academics, we all talk about this. This is Zuma, who had this generally corrupt relationship with Shabir. This was all over the world. Until the judge thought this was unfair to him now, because he had never said so, and asked people to read his judgment, because he never said there was a generally corrupt relationship between these two individuals. But everybody had been saying this. Where did they get it from? Why would they put such a serious phrase against some individuals, an allegation which was unfounded? This was done to enhance the narrative against Zuma, that Zuma is corrupt. Even if the judge did not say that, they must put the words in the mouth of the judge. Fortunately, that one is a matter that many people know. It was clear to me that this plan continues. And that's why I would say there are people who would not be happy if I was not either in jail I was not removed. Of course, we continued. As I was supposed to be charged, or again, when I'd been charged already, rather, the investigations were going on. NPA was confronted by the tapes, which indicated they've been planning, conspiring to charge me with politicians and everybody else. The tapes are now a public thing. To an extent that when the head of NPA at the time came to know about these tapes, decided to withdraw the charges. And therefore had no case against me then. Not because of anything, because the plan to character assassinate Zuma, the plan to remove Zuma from leadership, the explanation was done by these three intelligence organizations, that he should be out, because if he's there, he will use the information he has to either expose or stop our people from going forward. It means, therefore, that plan, which was made by intelligence organizations, in a sense, had to be implemented, among others, by even people in my own organization. You will recall that when I was building my home at Nkandla, problems arose there about corruption. And again, you will recall that the media in this country mentioned the figure of the money I've squandered and everything. At that place, there were two structures of government that investigated. They found nothing on Zuma. But I've been so much vilified in the world and everywhere that I'm the most corrupt person. Of course, after the two institutions investigated, the former public protector also came in to do her own investigation. Because people wanted to find something. She found nothing. That is in her report. Then she decided to say the additional security matters in my homestead, which were put in as a result of the police and the army for security reasons, as it is their duty to look after the president of the country. The public protector recommended that I should pay for those because I indirectly benefited. No one, no other president has been made to do so. But look at the heading of the report by the public protector. It said, secured in comfort. Why in comfort? Because I had built with government money an amphitheater in Gandla. Fortunately, thereafter, members of parliament from all parties went to Gandla to do inspection. They looked for this amphitheater and asked where it is. It's not there. It was never there. But an officer from a body like the public protector, who's supposed to protect us, used the phrases to enhance the narrative that Zuma is corrupt. If you want to see why, for an example, I have a problem and observations about how this commission was established, firstly, the issue of the family, the Guptas, came in, and the ANC felt we need to look into this. And I think the Secretary General of the ANC was given a task by the NEC to investigate because there were these allegations. Somebody also said that the public protector should investigate, also in addition to whatever it was done. Public protector said there was no money. But the Treasury found money to give the public protector so that investigate this before she leaves in a hurry. And of course, she left the work, tried to complete it, but it was difficult, but it was there. The report, there should be a state capture report. This was, again, to use this phrase, that's why I've had a problem with it. Was the state captured? Why the report must say we are investigating the state capture? Now, I don't know because I never went to any school. I take things perhaps literally. I thought that the state, in the main, is composed of three arms: Parliament, the judiciary, and the executive. But the commission is not meant to investigate these three, whatever else but these three, but it's called the state capture. The matters that have been dealt with, for me, are general corruption matters. Why? It was because I was the kingpin that we must get at. This commission, according to those who are implementing things, must be the grave of Zuma. It must be buried here. And that's why whoever knew the Gupta family or they were friends, then they don't matter, but Zuma matters. Because something must be found. even if the money is not there, those in charge of treasury to find the money to give to the public protector so that this must be done quickly. In other words, the plan continues to be implemented. Precisely because the opposition parties would want the ANC out of government, so they pick up the pieces, go to, we must reinstate the case, etc. It's meant. You don't even know whether these people are coordinating quietly. So I've had a problem that this is not said it's a commission for corruption. If you want to specify it with a particular family, so why do you call it a state capture? Is that expression meaning that the judges are captured? Is the government captured? Is the parliament captured? I'm sure people have said they've got views, particularly because one day when I was addressing the students in the Eastern Cape, and these were the students of law, and I said to them, just check this for me. Why would legal people accept this expression and work on it? What purpose does it serve? In other words, you are saying to the international community, South African judges are captured. All political parties in parliament are captured. The executive is captured by this family. It's an exaggeration. It is meant to enhance this narrative against Zuma. Perhaps it is important to just firm up one point that I made in passing, that I was supposed to be talked to resign. Long after Bulugwan, I've got a comrade that I've known that I recruited into the struggle, who is a businessman now. We had a common friend in Angola. Because of Bulugwane, this friend felt that, well, my relations with this comrade was never good. He wanted us to talk. Can you talk? So I said, fine. And this is Comrade Mzikumalo. So we met with the three of us, two of us and this friend. We said there is no fight among us. Whenever we go to a conference of the ANC, there is a contestation. Doesn't mean there is a fight. So we discussed that, fine. Of course, Mzi said, you know, I'm a cadre. You were elected there. In fact, he said, I did not even support Mbeki. I was supporting Nkosazana. But once that happens, we are one. But he says something interesting, that he was approached before Bulugwane conference by two comrades he knew and the one official they were going with. This was Bulelani Nguka, Penuel Maduna. They were accompanied by a Scorpion official, which he did not know. They presented a matter to him to say, we have come to you to make a request. This comrade Zuma, we've done investigation. It is at a stage where we need to go further. And this comrade, the case will be very serious. You know, this comrade sacrificed, fought a lot. Now, we don't think he should go to prison. We think that we should find a way to make him leave the work that he's doing and retire, go to Nkandla, and would want to look after him. So we wanted to come and talk to you as a comrade, as a business. Can you help give us some money to do so? This is said by these two comrades to Mzi Khumalo, who now relates this to me. And he says, I said to them, how much? I'm fine, I can pay. How much? They said, we'll come back to you. But he says they never came back. But again, the rumor that was going in the corridors that Zuma must be made to resign and go to Nkandla becomes a reality, confirmed by the discussion between Mzi Khumalo and them. So as I said earlier, it was a rumor, but this was confirmed very firmly. No one has ever come to me to say, could you go home and stay? But it moves around. People try to find something that can make Zuma disappear. And therefore, many other things, including the coming into being of this commission, influenced by this. And people who are participating, are not aware of that. And my concern, the public protector, leaving aside the name of the commission, in my view, prescribes how this commission is going to be. All commissions are appointed by presidents, and there is no question about it. The public protector says in the process of making the proposal, the Chief Justice must be the one to identify the judge, who must then be the chair of the commission. And I find that very odd, because in my view, the public protector is taking the powers, executive powers, of the president. It's asking the Chief Justice to do the job that must be done by the president. But of course, I was the president then, and this was basically centered around me. I thought I should not raise these issues. It's going to be again said Zuma is making tactics, of delaying tactics, whatever. Was that fine? And hoping, of course, hoping that legal people will say, but what is this? But of course, the commission was established. I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with the public protector taking the powers of the president in order to fulfill some agenda. I don't know. Unless I'm told otherwise, Chair, that in fact there is a provision in the Constitution, I would be very happy that there was nothing wrong that the public protector was saying. Why would the public protector go to the extent of influencing how this and who must do rather the identification of the leader of the commission? All these things put together tell me there is a huge plan which is being made, and it has been made and it has been implemented. You'll recall that the issue of Zuma must resign, the issue of the attempts in Parliament of the vote of no confidence, which is fine because that is within the framework. In fact, even people remembered that we don't even have the way how to impinge a president. It's not, let us do it. Because we must take this fellow out. We must find a way. And here is the commission. This fellow, he is a friend of this family. We are going to find something. He tells, he's being told by this family who to appoint, who not to appoint, etc., etc. And there is nothing of that kind. I'm still waiting for somebody to come and tell me, said, yes, you were told here that elect or appoint this one, and you did in this way and that way. Because I've been waiting so that I can really ask the kind of a person, where did you get this from? But it has been made to be included in the narrative, get rid of Zuma. The whole country, at one point there was a demonstration that we have never seen before. When the white community came out in great numbers, Zuma must go. What has he done? Nobody can tell. He's corrupt. What has he done? Nothing. Of all the presidents who have been before me, it's not a single one who has been brought and even brought it to commissions, etc. But to Zuma, we must do it. I'm giving this background because whatever we do, I've listened to some of the people who have been accusing me coming here. One of them said that it was Mwagora Matlodi. When we were saying he must resign, he asked, what have I done? We know he has auctioned the country. What an exaggeration from a lawyer. He can't tell you auction what? Did I auction Table Mountain? Or auction Johannesburg? I don't know. The man is sitting, was sitting where I'm sitting now. Zuma has auctioned the country. That's why we said he must go. But it's a lie. There's nothing of that nature. Finally, because I'm here, I'm about to finish my second term. Those people, perhaps, who were part of the decision taken that Zuma must not be chief intelligence within my organization, feel they failed to do the task. Those who are tasked to ensure that Zuma goes. They create a situation as we're about to go for the state of the nation. To say Zuma must not give this one. He must resign. Including the NEC meets to take that decision. Why? He must be out. It's part of the implementation of the plan by the intelligence organizations that Zuma must go. And of course, finally, he must come before the commission and answer questions. And I'm here to answer questions. But, Chair, I thought it is important for me to give you this background in whatever conclusions the commission will come to, or whatever questions you are going to be asking me. You must bear in mind that I've got this background that is a worry to me. The fact that I was the president some people forgot it. And of course, clearly, if there are such activities, particularly from my own organization, I need perhaps to go back and say, these three intelligence organizations who said there are people here, are there people here? Do I know whether there are people here or not? Even from my intelligence work. Now, I don't want to discuss intelligence, but certainly the actions, the behavior has indicated that it looks like there are. Who are they? Should we reach that point? Because for a number of reasons, we've been very careful not to play to this ground, to that ground, because it's sensitive. But I have been provoked and provoked to the last degree. By people at times, I know what they're doing, because I've been wanting to save the organization and to save the country. They make stories. They do everything. My own family suffers out of this. Leaving me, perhaps I'm a soldier, I can take everything. People forget that I've got a family which will not want to hear lies being told about me. But not just that. You have some of my children who have suffered as a result of me. One of my sons, Sadi, was working in a company, I think it's Marse firefighting company. He was working there, given a responsibility to look for, to concentrate on the continent. And there was a time put that at the end of this time, you would become one of the directors. A company which had Nguga and others wanted to have a deal with this company, and indeed, they talked to this company. When it came to the papers, they saw a name, Zuma. Some said Zuma. They asked, who is this? Poor fellow, he thought that this is a child of a president. These guys are ANC, they would be very happy. He says, no, this is the son of the president. They said, sorry, we can't have a deal with this name. If this man remains on your papers, there is no deal. It's either us or him. He was asked very politely by the employers to leave the company. He tried to look for a job in Johannesburg. Because he was Zuma's son, he couldn't find it. He tried to start business, he couldn't. He came to me to say, I've got a problem. I said, my son, go to Durban and look for a job. That's why he went to start his own business. The young man who comes after that one, to Tuzani, they started knowing this family when they used to come to me when I was still a deputy president. When he finished his studies, he has done IT. He went to work in the intelligence, national intelligence of the country. When these attacks on me started, He was ill-treated there. He finally came to me to say, I wanted to work for government, but I can't because I'm your son. I'm not even what could accepted there. He looked for an employment. Now that he knew his family, that they are running an IT company, he looked for a job in that company. And he was employed and worked there as an employer, as an employee rather. When I was taken to court, he was quite agitated, left the job. He wanted to take videos of my appearance in court, etc., with his friend. I said, you can't leave a job. He said, no, I'm leaving this job. Of course, the case disappeared at some point. He came back to me to say, Daddy, you were right. I'm not finding a job. I've been looking for a job in Gauteng. Nobody can take me because I'm your son. I've been looking for partners. Nobody can take me. I said to him, you know what I said to your brother? He must go to Durban. Go to Durban. He went to Durban. Started some business with some partners. But later he discovered something that he did not like in the company. On his own, he went to talk to the Guptas that he would like to come back, but not as an employee this time. He wants to be part of the company. They discussed and finished. I did not even know. I was only informed afterwards. And he has been there working. Because he's my son, he has suffered a great deal. Of course, people would not feel good if I'm still there. But I'm just giving the chair the impact of this. As we moved towards the end, as I said, the NEC itself was influenced to take a decision that there's been calling Zuma must go, now he must go indeed. In other words, that plan I'm talking about finally succeeded. I had to resign from the ANC in order to leave the ANC intact because I love it. It's my organization. It meant nothing if I resign. The ANC remains. But it is clear to me something which came from the answer of the three intelligence organizations, that there are people infiltrated, they are spies. They were at work. I asked my organization, what have I done? And I got no answer. Maybe, Chair, having said what I've said, let me deal with my relationship with the Gupta family so that you don't suffer, you try to ask questions. Because...
Well, sorry, Mr. Zuma. Maybe this might be the convenient time to take the tea break. We were going to take, we normally take it at 11:15, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So we are at 9 minutes to 12. We'll take the tea break and resume at 12:10. We adjourn. I'm just waiting for everybody to sit down at the back. Yes, thank you. You, Mr. Zuma, you were about to begin to tell me about your relationship with the Gupta family. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will come back to other points here. I just thought it's important for me to deal with that matter.
Yes.
Particularly because many people have criticized me, even in my own organizations. I've explained in the proper settings of the organization. Some people just don't want to take it. But I think it is important to explain this because it also has elements that are funny. Members of this family were brought to my residence in Oliver Tambo when I was the deputy president, where I saw them for the first time. They were coming from Mahlambandlovu, from President Mbeki. The person who introduced them was Iso Pahad. They were introduced as good business people, but they were also comrades, members of the ANC. And that's how some of my family members got to know them. The young man was still very young at the time, was there, saw them and introduced them. That's why when he wanted a job, he remembered that they had said they ran this kind of a company, of IT company. They were also introduced for the second time by some comrades in Gauteng who were praising them that in their company, they take workers from their places in the morning to work, and they cook lunch for them, and they take them back at sunset. That's how I got to know them. And with time, because I had now known them, I got to know even some of the things they do. For an example, one of them was a member of the International Council that was advising the president on economic things. And I found them to be a very, very friendly family. With time, I got to know quite a number of them, if not all of them. And they were indeed, they knew a lot of comrades. And I got to know that, in fact, when Mandela was president, they started being very close and was a friend of Mandela. And when Mandela was gone, they were friends with Thabo. Whilst I was there, as I say, they saw me coming from his home. I've never did anything with them, unlawfully or whatever. They just remained friends, as they were friends to everybody else. I've explained how my son to them, he looked for a different kind of business people to work with. And I've wondered why I am accused, why people think that my relationship with them is not right when they had relationship with other people. 2 other presidents have had relations with them. In fact, more stronger with Comrade Thabo Mbeki. He himself has appeared talking with them, at times addressing them in the social media. Why should people think that this was one thing to get Zuma? And they did not know what was happening. Everything that happens is sort of associated with me. I'm sure you have listened here to, and I've been, given names and names that I allowed these people to land in the national point in South Africa. No one has ever asked me, did you do so? Or is there any information to that effect? Was it never happened? I did not know where they were going to land, nor whether there was a landing to happen on a particular day. But it has been Zuma again. And that's what Nwako Ramahloti said, as he was giving evidence here. He allowed his friends to land in a highly sensitive area. Comrade Nwako has never asked me whether I talked to them and I allowed them to come there. And I'm sure you have it now in your records. Perhaps not the matter to dwell so much, but the point I'm making, I never did any other thing out of or breaking the law with this family. Never. There were business people and successful business people. They knew a lot of business people who are also in the ANC. And I think some might have worked with them. I'm not a business person. I know nothing about business. I'm a politician. I know something about politics. Because of the fact that they are comrades, they're accepted, and I realized that they seem to be not just small little business, they are quite substantial. There had been a problem that worried us, all of us, that in this country, the media is very biased. At all material times, it's just critical. It criticizes the country, etc. There is no alternative voice. And if people could complain and say I abused them, that one I could plead guilty. Because I then one day, having known that we have been trying to have business who are progressive, to establish a media sort of alternative voice of what is happening. I think even people who are ANC members had tried even to partner with other people. It had never worked. At that time, I was the president of the ANC. I then said to them, men, and making a suggestion, can you try a business, a media business? Because we are comrades, we need an alternative voice. There are many attempts that have been made before by progressive people, but they've never worked. Is it possible that you could establish a newspaper? They'd never thought of the idea. And we discussed this. They finally said, I think it's a good idea because it is business as well. I said, fine. So they said, no, we'll do something about it. They came back to say now they've decided they want to establish a newspaper. As soon as they agreed, because this was me as an individual talking about what we had seen as a problem, that the media in this country is very negative. In fact, a number of things that are done, which they're supposed to be reported about, at times they don't see the light of day, only negativity. Once they agreed, I then thought it would be important for me to make one person aware of this, one leader, who was the Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Matash. I said, Gwede, I've talked to these comrades for them to do their business. And they seem to be warm to the idea. And then, after that, I also informed the Deputy Secretary General about this. to say this is an initiative of these comrades, but it's an important one. We as politicians pay a lot of attention to media, also running countries, because we would want, for an example, a fair reporting. At times, the reporting in our country is not fair. So, they were happy as well. So I said, man, so that you know I'm not just talking. One day I would be happy if you could see them and hear how they're thinking of it. They've been thinking about it. So the two comrades and myself listened to them at one time when they wanted to say how they want to go about this thing. So I agreed. When they were about when they were moving forward, they then said, can you help? Asking me, give us a name. You don't know how to call this newspaper. So I said to them, there used to be struggle publications we used to have, called Spark, Fighting Talk, New Age, etc. So I gave all these names. They loved this name, New Age. And that's how the paper was named. So they established a newspaper and started working. We're very happy. They even discussed that they are going to report about provinces in this paper, so that there's no province that is not reported to. As always, they are not in the national newspapers, except there's a big thing. Let's do something different, as I was saying. When this paper was operating and really being appreciated in the country to bring about an alternative voice, I then said, man, the newspaper, fine, we have succeeded. I don't know, and I was thinking whether I could push them further. So I said to them, this is very successful. What about a TV channel? I suggested the paper to them, I suggested the channel. Somebody can then say we're abusing this friendship. It was never the other way around. It's me who put them into trouble. Because I said, your paper is so successful. I'm sure your TV thing can be successful. And they agreed, they said it's a good idea. And they moved on it. I know that people who had problems had a lot to say about this. I thought it was a very good thing that they did. There was no law broken there. There was no wrong things done. I discussed with business people many things when I was still in the government. Even suggest certain things can't you do in your business. This was a normal kind of interaction. So they established this. And indeed, the ANN 7 brought a fresh air in the country in terms of reporting, in terms of putting across progressive ideas. It was never a backdoor thing or that there's corruption about it, nothing. Clear suggestion about business, and business people took it. They then fetch their people wherever it was. I'm making this point because that relationship ended up, insofar as we are concerned, who want media that is progressive, helping to have this media that was able to report differently. That is an extent of the kind of friendship we had. I think they invite always many people for their functions, yearly functions, and people go there. Somehow, because I was, this was me, people thought that we found something to implement that plan because Zuma is friends to this. Let us say his relationship with Guptas is corrupt. And I don't know, where is it corrupt? Few comrades raised the matter with me. I asked, what is the wrong thing? What is wrong? They couldn't tell me. In fact, one time it was raised in the National Executive Committee. I made an explanation how I came to know this. It is wrong. There was nothing wrong. But some people are irritated. I don't know why. Besides this, I even explained this in the National Executive Committee, that we just talked with them. One comrade is so bad, is actually working with them in a publication called The Thinker. He was editor. I think at the end, that business ended up with him. Nobody says anything about that. Nobody says anything about the relationship between them and Mandela, between them and Mbeki. But because there's a done with Zuma, there is something wrong. And nobody's telling me what is wrong with me, what is not wrong with other people, including other comrades. But some people thought this is what we are going to get Zuma. That's why they influence the process to establish this commission, to find Zuma. They've been friends, and they were friends, and they worked with my son, and there was absolutely no problem. In fact, I was waiting to hear what is it that they did wrong. There is nothing more that I can say, these are the things we did. I'm mentioning this because to me, these were important. The media thing, the newspaper and the channel. We talked to them. Once the idea was ripe, they then went to brief the top 6 officials about the initiative they were undertaking. They also briefed the alliance. They also briefed provinces. And they also, I think, like all newspapers, talked to people in government for advertisement or whatever. What's wrong with that? No, it's because they happen to know Zuma. They become friends to Zuma. Then there's something wrong. Now, I couldn't take people who are raising issues on this matter when they have no complaint, just to say, no, we don't like them. Never did I discuss anything that does not belong to them. I'm told that they were appointing ministers. Where do they come in? Why they should do so? Was I not capable of doing my work? That I needed other people? Do a lot of consultation with the leadership when it comes to placing people or forming cabinet or whatever. I've never done it alone. What's the problem? Of course, unfortunately, those who came never said, this is what has happened. They just say wrong things, blah, 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 blah. It's important for us to clarify that point. Some people are so irritated And I did not know how to explain that one. These were comrades, these were business people. I was introduced to them, even at a very high level of the ANC, and that's how I got to know them. And that's why my son felt if he went to them and joined them and become partner to them, these are people he can work and succeed. And I thought there was no problem. But he has been crucified for that. Well, in terms of the Guptas, unless there was anything which, if when the time comes, I will come to, let me come back to the issue of the plan, the unfolding of the plan. The people who come deal with the issues. I have been attacked, even when I'm coming here. Part of the reason we have more visitors today than any other time, because I'm here. Some people I know for a fact might know that I know things about them, and therefore they are not going to like me. But I've behaved for decades. I've not played around with intelligence information. I've lived with people who don't know I know about them. Because that was not what I was trained for, to use intelligence wrongly or carelessly. But these comrades have provoked me and other people. Not only them, some other people had said things. For an example, one day, Comrade Mbalula attended an activity in the farm or home of Mr. Robert. And when Robert saw him, he said, Minister Mbalula, when that happened, he was the Minister of Sports. If Zuma takes out Pravin Gordhan, would shut down the economy, we must go and take. And indeed, Mbalula came to tell me. I said, but what he has to do with us? I didn't know that he's a member of the ANC to decide how the ANC must deal with these matters. What is his problem? I said, go back to him to say that's his problem. But he said, we'll shut down, we'll make the rent flat on the ground. Well, fine. Indeed, they did interfere with the land, with the rent. I think there is one person who confessed not long this year that they did so. And I knew even at that time it was a deliberate move. Part of the agenda. I never thought I would be nasty to people. And I think I can be nasty. I've been over-provoked. People coming, saying things about me because I'm not going to revenge. perhaps some people that the planners at the beginning talked about, they've reached the point where they say they wanted them to reach. I don't know. I have survived attempts to kill me. People looking to poison me or being instructed by their handlers to do so. Finally, poisoned. All emanates from those people who made the plan at the beginning. At some point they felt, I'm not disappearing. And therefore they must deal with me. Many attempts were made. Firstly, the court issue, for an example, was a way to get me out. I don't think there is a case in this country that finished 15 years going in and out, even if the judges say there is no case here. Those who remember, Judge Msimang, the late, said there was no case and he took it out of court. And those who remember, Judge Nicholson said there is no case here, this is just politics. And indeed, the tapes confirm what Nicholson was saying. But no newspaper will write that because the narrative is deal with Zuma. I'm still having the case. I have made an application that the case must go. They do everything to ensure that this case is there because it feeds to the narrative that Zuma must go. Everything I do, nothing. That is why, even the 9 years that I was in government, some people will say it was a wasted time. Even if they were party to implementing decisions, they were party taking those decisions. But when they talk about it, they are out of it. Zuma must account. It's absolutely important that we accept the fact that there is something we need to deal with as a country. The very fact that intelligence organizations, which today are key instruments to run countries, the war today is fought at intelligence level, no longer at the hard guns, etc. A worrying point is that one of our intelligence, which was still under the hands of the apartheid regime, conspired with two other intelligence organizations to do things in our country. And it means those who were negotiating with us, they were besfihlele induku emqubeni, because we also know that at the time a decision was taken that some of the agents who had been operating, getting pay from the apartheid regime, that the apartheid regime thought that they were not known by the ANC. There was an agreement between the intelligence organization here and the United States that those should be taken with their files to them. But they will remain with us. And they remain with us. And they are among us. And therefore, they have their bosses. They are handled to do things here. And that's why some of them were rushing to come here, because they've no. When, and I must say this, when we were in exile, at some point having done a number of things, the organization gave me the task to be chief of intelligence. And there's a particular spy that I would say something about. He was called Ralph, but he had given himself the name Fear. Who infiltrated the ANC and caused a lot of damage. And because I had problems with him when I was still doing other work, when I was here, I made it a point that we come into grips with this. Some people have written a book with some information, distorted information on this particular character, as they were trying to give the sins of Zuma in some books. He operated in Swaziland and caused people to die. We finally arrested him. And indeed, he confessed he was a spy, well trained. Before, he was a student in the Western Cape, but it did not finish because there was a strike, they were chased out. He went to Durban to his sister. And during that time, he was recruited by the regime. Was taken to training for 6 months how to be a spy. And trained through the ANC literature, so that when he comes to exile, he must look like a bright student who catches so quickly, and yet is being taught on the material is being taught here by the apartheid regime. Came with his wife. There's a long story about him. And the wife herself was sent. So they had a marriage that was authorized by the police at the right time, a part of the cover. And was finally arrested and confessed.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the word the wife himself was, is it sacked?
Sorry?
I didn't hear what you said about the wife. Did you say his wife was sacked?
I said I was sent by the police, by the special branch.
Sent by the police?
Yeah, from home to join him.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. When he was detained, he asked to see me. And I saw him with the comrade John Hlanhla, where he was saying, I've written my confession, here it is. But I just wanted to come and talk to you. I so hated you. If I found you sleeping when there was no one, I would cut your throat. He said, it took me time to confess because I have been more loyal to the regime government rather than the ANC. But I thought it is important for me to tell the truth now. That agent knew a number of others who are in the movement because he was one of highly regarded spies of the regime. As soon as he did confession, he was poisoned and died. But he had given the list of others because he knew them. And many comrades lost their lives because of the work of that person. He even made comrades inside the country to lose their lives if he was instructed to give cadres instructions to kill people inside. One of the comrades was in KZN that he did so. Send innocent comrades to that comrade to say he's a spy when he was not a spy. Much as I have a view about spies and everything, but we had a code to operate that we handle this with care. But I think other spies who have been sitting around, sebeiketlile manje. Sebehleli ukuthi awuso sebenza umathanda. You know, just recently there was a function in Durban where the Maskandis wanted to fill the stadium. Some of those people, one day you'll know, they planned to murder me inside the stadium. And I know them. They planned to murder me.
Is this a reference to some of those people who may have appeared in the list that was left behind by the spy who was poisoned?
Some of them.
Okay, all right.
What saved my life is because I did not go there. This is attempt on my life. There have been people sent from outside the country to come and kill me. But I've been patient, not saying a thing. But I have been provoked to the last degree. Yes, I've got the list and other lists as well. But that's not the business of me to deal with those matters here. But it's important. It's important for me so that you can see the behavior of people. What made Comrade Nwako to behave the way he did here? Saying that I've auctioned the country. In the NEC, I just do what I like. He's carrying out an instruction. He was recruited when he was a student in Lesotho to be a spy.
please, let's not clap. Thank you.
And he finds it very comfortable to come here and say, this Zuma, he was a good man. And I've known him for years that it's what he is, but I've never shown it. Because I thought he will change. Some other people have made themselves very nice, joined something called 101, and said a lot of things about me. Some of them that I commanded, some of them who commanded other comrades, but they are not known. And perhaps people will realize why there seem to be some problems. Somehow, somewhere, I think it will be important for people to behave correctly so that they don't cause problems. Some of the people I've loved, I've worked with them, trusted them. Even when I got to know, because I thought maybe they've left the wrong ways. The critical point is that the plan made way back has been working, and our enemies, in fact, have recruited more even than during the struggle. That's why you will see things when people are doing things in the manner in which doesn't look like ANC. It is some of them who influence that there should be this commission to bury Zuma. And I'm sure in the discussions as we go, I will be looking at things and saying, what else? I want peace. I want harmony. And that is why even those who have done things to me, I'm not feeling bitter about them. But some of them have even collected information, gave it to the writers to write books about me. Maybe at some point in the discussions here, I might come back to this issue in the commission while the commission still continues. But I thought I should deal with one who has said to me, I've auctioned the country to the Guptas. Others have said things out there, but the time is there to deal with matters. All I'm saying, it's important for you, Chair, to realize that some of the things we're dealing with are very big and very deep. And it's important to know there is a plan that is being implemented against Zuma. And it gets in many ways. I must come here and answer questions about people of who perhaps, I don't know what questions are there, but the ones I've heard so far, I thought there's somebody who's going to say Zuma is hiding something with the Guptas or something. So that gives what is it that I've done wrong? But it's important to bring Zuma here so that the narrative grows. Here is Zuma being questioned about his relationship with Guptas, etc. What's wrong with the relationship? Nothing wrong. And then, but many other people are friends to these comrades. They're not the issue. The issue is Zuma. Now, as you collect the information and you walk towards making conclusions, I thought that this is important that I say. Partly because some people are part of the plot to kill me, perhaps it is important that before I die, I tell the story. I'm telling you, if I can tell you the details of the plan to kill me in Durban was detailed. Detailed. It involved people brought from outside of the country. Laba kuthiwa amadela kufa, suicidal bombers, were supposed to do to me. And perhaps that will make you realize that for me, the matter is bigger than it meets the eye. And I've been respectful to comrades and to people I know. Maybe I've reached a point where that must now take another. They concoct everything just to deal with Zuma. As part of this narrative, there is a book, the book is there, there is a film which is being made about the case that took place and I was found not guilty. Rape case. There is a journalist in South Africa who is doing that one. Reddy Tlabi. It's being done outside to say Zuma is a rapist. It fits in this narrative. She has been doing it in the media where she works, great deal. Because this narrative must be done. The question I ask them, these people who participate in it, where do they get the idea that Zuma must be put down? Who instructs them? Perhaps it will be important to look into this matter many times to say, what can we do? We have a country to save, but there are people who don't care, who want to give negativity in terms of what we do in this country. I've resigned as asked by my National Executive Committee, and I'm staying there, far away. But even when I'm staying there, there is a plot to kill me. When I'm no longer in any activity, except attending the National Executive Committee meetings of the ANC, as a member of the ANC. Well, as the commission goes, I might come back with other matters, but I thought it's just important at this point to take the matter up to here. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zuma. I think it is good that you decided to tell the Commission what you have told it, because, as your counsel indicated, the Commission had indicated that part of what it would like to hear is your side of the story, and that there would be also questions. So it was important that you be given that opportunity. We are at 1:05. We will take the lunch break now, and we will resume at 2:15. We adjourn.